And so, whether you are actively working on your culture or not, culture is happening.
Hey there, it's Casey Farmer here with the Build with BBB podcast. Today we have a very special guest, Francis Flair. Francis, welcome to the podcast. We're going to
Thank you.
talk a little bit about your business in consulting. Let's go from there. Tell us about your business. What do our listeners need to know about you?
Well, that is a very broad question.
Mm-hmm.
And I think for the sake of your audience and to understand context, I think we need to start from the beginning. And I think for any business owner, any business leader, I think sometimes we just tend to focus on the work they do. But I think understanding where they come from and who they are truly makes an impact and makes people understand why it's important for what they do. So if you can tell from my exotic accent, of course, I'm from Houston. Uh, well, I am from Ghana, West Africa, originally. And growing up in an orphanage, I only had one dream, and that was to go to school in the US. I had no idea how that was going to be possible, no idea how that was going to be. But then there was a missionary at the orphanage at the time who was like, well, obviously, we can't afford this. And so if you do your part, then we'll see what God can do. And that was literally it. And so in elementary school, did what I had to do, got good grades. You go to school, you do what you have to do. I got a scholarship to go to high school in Ghana. And high school in Ghana, it's like college here where you leave home to go to school. And so I got to do that. And then when I got to high school, I started doing what I had to do in terms of going to school, getting good grades. I bought a book for the SAT, started studying for that, and then God being so good, I got a scholarship to come to school in the US. And so when I came, again, I just stayed focused, graduated, but then I had to move over to Florida. So I came to school in Oklahoma. So Oklahoma is like home to me because that's all I've known when I came. And so when I graduated, I moved over to Jacksonville, Florida, because at the time my girlfriend, now wife, lived there. And so when I got to Jacksonville, I had to start all over again because I had no contact, nothing. And as an international student, if you can relate, you have so many roadblocks in terms of red tapes of what you can do, what you can't do, when, how. And so after I got a permit to be able to work, I started working at a convenience store in Jacksonville, Florida, a very popular convenience store, very big in the South. And it was working, it was something to do. You came with a dream of doing big things, and then you graduate with a college degree working at a convenience store for $9.50. And it's like, it is what it is, right? We all had to go through we all had to do what we have to do. And so one Thanksgiving break, I worked 16 hours. That was because I had a morning shift from 7 to 3, but then the afternoon guy, of course, don't show up. And so I worked from 7 to 11. I wasn't working at 7-Eleven, even though, so after that, I thought, well, I can't do this anymore. I need to find something else to do. And there was a dry cleaning company next block, dry cleaning. Literally walk to it, where during lunches, breaks, their team members would come to the gas station to get, hot dogs, quick lunch, drinks, whatever that was. And so one time, the assistant manager was like, "Hey, we think you should come and give us a try. We are always hiring. We feel this will be a good fit for you." So, I mean, what have I got to lose? So I really took the opportunity, jump shipped. I went there. And when I got there, what I noticed was the owners, and if you know anything about dry cleaning, it's really a luxury. People don't have to do dry cleaning. Those who do it because they have some discretionary income, they can afford it. It's all about the convenience. And so to really differentiate yourself, you have to focus on the service and experience. And the owners understood that. And so every year he would send about 3 to 5 members of his team to the conference, a customer service conference. So hoping that they will come back and learn something and come back and implement it in a company. And in my first year there, I got the opportunity to go. So when we came back, we implemented some of the stuff. And it's the typical, you go to a conference and you have this motivational shot and you feel like, yeah, you're going to take on the world. Then you come back and you realize, oh, shoot, I still have my work I need to catch up from last week. Then you get in the weeds and then it's all lost. And you do your best to implement some of the stuff, but you have no idea whether you're doing the right thing. And so you're still throwing spaghetti at the wall, hoping something sticks. So we did what we could. Then we went back the second year. I went again. And then when I came back, I went to the owner and I said, I think this is great, but to really get a real impact, to really make a difference, like take this to the next level, I think you should invest in me going to learn the secret, the systems of what makes a great service company. Like, what is the secret to Chick-fil-A, Starbucks, the Ritz-Carlton, Disney? Like, what's their secret? And so he took me up on the offer, and my promise to him was, if you did that, you wouldn't have to take your team back to the conference. And so he took me up on that offer, went steady, came back, learning from the best, like Disney, like the Ritz-Carlton, companies who have worked with Chick-fil-A, Starbucks, and co. And came back, we implemented the stuff, and we saw tremendous results. And I thought I was helping them, but it was actually for me. I went through that transformation in the sense that I realized that I enjoy solving problems. I enjoy helping organizations learn how to improve, help employees operate at their best and love their jobs. And so I mean, for a small company where people come in and go because they're looking for a job and not a career, considering the industry, we were able to reduce turnover from 35% to less than 5%. We were charging over 30% more than the nearest competitor at the time. We were growing revenue at least 5% each year. And I was like, wait a second. If this works in dry cleaning, service transcends every industry. We are all in one industry, which is the people industries. We sell commodities. However, it's all about the service and experience. And so I went back to him again. I said, Mike, I think I'm going to go on my own. Would you be my first client? And he was gracious enough to give me his blessings, turning me to my first client. He's still a client. And we started Flair Consulting Group from there. And now we are fortunate enough to have clients in higher education, medical, assisted living, technology, of course, dry cleaning all over the US and in Canada. And so that's how I learned the customer experience systems and all the secrets. But to really deliver a consistently great customer service, great customer experience, it really comes down to three things and three things only. And I think most leaders focus on the outcome of delivering a great service and experience. But the two pieces are employee engagement, employee experience, and leadership. Every world class company you know of or you love to do business with is world class to work for. Without having the right systems in place in ensuring that all these pieces fit and align, it's really impossible to deliver a consistently great customer experience. So it always starts at the top. And so you have to have that leadership commitment. You have to have that executive sponsorship where the leaders buy into the why service and experience is important, and then translate down over to the employees. Because at the end of the day, if you want the outcome, it's great, but people deliver the outcome. And if your people are not happy, if they are not motivated, if they don't feel valued and appreciated, it's really impossible to deliver that service and experience. And so for all these things to align, that's when you actually begin to start on this journey of delivering consistency when it comes to the experience. And so the pieces are, it's simple across all industries. The formula is the same. Have leadership commit to it. Ensure that your people are in the right space, right frame, improving their employee experience. And I think with the pandemic, it kind of expose the lack of employee experience because it's harder now for companies to get employees to come back. And so we went through the great resignation, and then um, we went through that conundrum, the work from home. It's like it just became a mess because I think during the pandemic, employees realized, wait, I have so much more to give, and if you're not willing to give me what I'm looking for, you're not willing to make me feel important, then I'm not going to work, you know. And so we had done mass exodus of people leaving their roles and their jobs, and that was just a clear indication that leadership or leaders had not done a good job making their people understand the roles they play and the importance they have in the organization. Because without the people, you don't get the outcome you're looking for, which is service and the experience.
Wow. What I'll say, what a beautiful story of how you landed where you're at, where your business came from, the heart behind it, your
Mhm.
passion behind what you do. Thank you for sharing that. The one thing that was going in the back of my mind, it's obvious that leadership is important to you, that people are important to you, and the value that people bring to an organization.
Mhm.
But then you say, I love Oklahoma, it's my home.
Mhm.
So what made you bring all of that love and the love for what you do and say, I want to take what I know and invest it in Oklahoma companies that brought you back here? Can you take me down that line?
Yeah, I mean, they say to whom much is given, much is expected. And I was in Florida and I was doing my graduate work. So, like, how I came back. So, to kind of connect the dots there, I was doing my graduate work at Oklahoma State whilst I was in Florida online. And so there was um, and like an internship capstone portion of it. And so I was going to come over for a semester, and I was like, well, let's just make it into a move. And so we moved here, and we actually incorporated. I remember vividly. I was in Tulsa at the time. Incorporated February 3rd. Guess what? 2020, a week before the shutdown, and it was like, wow, okay, now we've taken this huge risk. We are a completely new state and no connections again because we were in Tulsa at the time. But I mean, it's been incredible. The value and the importance of relationships. I can count the people who have been very integral in my life, and it just goes on to show the value and importance of relationships. Like everyone I've come in contact with or met with or built a meaningful relationship with have really been tremendous in how we got where we are. And so moving back to the city just made sense. It just made sense. Going to Oklahoma Christian in Edmond, and having all my connections, and I mean the people here who are my support system, it just made sense to come over here, and that's how we got here. It just made sense.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
We have talked a lot about, well, no, you've teased a little bit about the importance of the customer experience.
Mhm.
Now, when I dug around a little bit, because before we hop on a podcast, I like
Of
to do a
course.
little bit of research.
You have to do your homework.
A lot of things on your website talked about your particular customer experience system.
Mhm.
Do you want to share a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, the system is really understanding the three pieces we talked about earlier: leadership, employee experience, and actually the standard or quality in service. But that is broad, right? And so you have to break it down and actually systematize it. So when you hire someone and you say, well, just take great care of the customer, well, what do you mean and how? And so, and I think that's where most companies forget or they get it wrong. They just say, oh, just take care of the customer. However, saying take care of the customer is very vague. And so it's extremely important that as a leader, you recognize that and you systematize the processes. And this, I mean, this used to be, I think for some people it still is, that the golden rule of customer service is what is it? Treat a customer how you want to be treated. that is dangerous.
Agree.
You don't want to treat a customer how you want to be treated. To avoid that, because the customer is coming to you because of value, not because of price or because of anything else. It's just because you can deliver on the value, whatever that is, consistency, convenience, proactivity, quality, whatever that is. And so you have to be able to systematize the processes of how you want them to treat the customer, and that's where the processes comes in. And so do you have consistency across your brand? If you have multiple locations, am I going to a different location and having completely a different experience as opposed to the other location? And so consistency is a big one. Convenience, do you make it easy for me to get in touch with you? Do you make it easy for me to um, give you a review, whatever that might be? And so those are the systems kind of looking into, okay, are you able to build meaningful relationships with your customers? It goes a long way, but it's really breaking down those three pieces and then actually defining what that looks like for you as an organization. Again, it's not going to help because then people are going to leave, morale is going to be low. And so it's about looking at things from the customer's perspective through the customer's lens, starting with your team, starting with your employees. And then after that, it's really looking at, okay, how can we serve the customer? But if your people are good, if your people understand the important roles they play and why it's so important when it comes to the overall experience, they will be willing to go above and beyond for the customer anytime. And so it really starts again. It may sound like a deadbeat, but that's really the secret. You have to focus on your people, because if your people are not aligned, it's extremely hard. And this is just human nature.
Mm-hmm.
Human nature. If you're not happy at your job, if you don't feel like your boss cares about you personally, professionally, wants you to succeed and is willing to do whatever it takes to ensure that you are happy, there's absolutely no way you will go out there and smile to a total stranger. That's service and experience, right? There's absolutely no way you'll be able to go out there and say, I want to go above and beyond for this customer. There's no way you want to make a good customer service, a good customer experience decision. Because training is important and all, but your people need to be educated as well. Because at some point, they will have to make a customer service decision, which does not come anywhere close to the training they need, but they have to be able to make an informed decision that aligns with your brand, what your brand promise is. And so, it all starts with leadership, defining who they are as an organization, as a company, and what they promise to deliver to their customers. And then how can we work that backwards to say, okay, how can we bring that to life in terms of getting our team to deliver that consistently? And that starts by ensuring that your team is actually aligned and in the right frame, right mindset.
So going back to the successes you saw in implementing some of these things in the dry cleaning business, can you give an example of what that looked like for, I'll say, empowering your team to make those decisions?
Yeah. So some leaders say, well, I wish my people could make decisions, right? I know someone's listening is thinking, yeah, I wish my people could do that. But then I have a question. Have you allowed them to make those decisions? Are you on them if they make a mistake? Have you empowered them? Have you elevated them that they feel empowered to make a decision? And so that's where it starts. Again, it comes back to the leader. As an organization, your leaders have to be okay. Regardless of whether you want the outcome or not, you are making a decision. You are choosing a path. And that's how culture is built. So this is really about a culture change. It's about you building a culture that is obsessed about delivering great experience and great service. And so the systems will vary, but it's leaders understanding that to give your people what they need and to empower them to, go on and make decisions, you are going to take some losses along the way, but it's understanding that that's okay and that's part of the process. And so, say in our case, using the dry cleaning for my employer as an example, we allow people to reimburse our clients if someone came and said, hey, my shirt was ruined in your care. Our team were empowered to say, yes, we'll replace it, or to say we'll redo it at no cost, right? But that's a culture we built, making them understand you own the experience, you own it as the individual. You make the best decision for the customer. And in that moment, it's not based on training. It's they looking at it and saying, okay, based on what they are telling me, this is probably the best course of action. But for every customer, some customers don't even want you to pay for it. They want you to just acknowledge it, that you messed up. And that's what some companies don't even understand. Like, they try to fight, or they try to get into this engagement with a customer, making them trying to understand or know who is right, who is wrong. And it's not about that. If the customer comes to you and they're not happy about something, admit it, and try to find a solution that works for both.
That's also pretty tough. I just think, me personally, I think about some of the first, like, I don't know, 10 years I was working, it was in customer service. And it's difficult to own those decisions, albeit, like, I was a little immature at the time and didn't realize that, wow, like, and I maybe didn't have the leaders as well in place to feel empowered to make those choices, but then also to feel like I need to admit when I'm wrong. Because it's so easy to just say, oh, well, like, here's the solution. If you don't take the solution, that's your problem. That's not mine. But it was a lot about the culture. So I appreciate you saying that.
Yeah.
Because I led by the example of the leaders that I had in place, I mean, it's what I had seen.
Yeah.
And so thinking about that a little bit further, like here at BBB, and it wasn't until I started working here in 2017 where I was like, wow, everybody owns their stuff. Like, it's not always fun, and like, work can be messy sometimes, and it's not easy to say I screwed up and I need to fix it. But yeah, I applaud you for owning that, and then picking that as your niche for customer experience, because I can agree, small businesses can grow, and I've seen them grow so much when they, at the forefront of their mind, they are champions for the clients that they have, and they want them to leave saying, wow, I've never had a roofing experience like that, or I've never had a consultant come in and really change the way my business works. But because they really focused on me, it became a part. It transitioned me. You had mentioned that earlier. Like, it wasn't until I had my own transition that I realized that's where I wanted to focus on.
Yeah. And I mean, you hit on a lot of notes there in terms of, like, your experience from your previous jobs. It wasn't your fault. The company failed to teach you what was required. So, not to bash on them, and I don't know them.
Sure, they're not a leading company, I would say. Like, you mentioned some big players in the game. You weren't mentioning that one I worked for, so.
Yeah. But, like, in terms of, like, organizations have built the wrong cultures, and they continue to add to the wrong cultures, whether good people or bad people, and they realize they forget that at the end of the day, they made a choice to bring those people on board, right? And so whether you are actively working on your culture or not, culture is happening, intentionally or not. And so it all comes back to leadership to say, who are we as an organization? Who are we as a brand? And then how does that translate over to the customer? And how can we bring our team on board along that journey to ensure that we are always honoring our brand promise? So your brand is not your logo, right? Your brand is something you have promised to deliver to your customers. That's what your brand promise is. So whatever that is, you need people to deliver it, but you have to ensure that you are hiring the right people to begin with. And so that's why in our system, we actually help you develop a system to really help you define the employee experience you want to deliver. Looking at it from the talent acquisition stage to, say, 10, 20 years, right? Defining the entire employee experience career with you and saying, okay, how do we want to stand out? what are the people who are the people we want to attract, and what do they look like? And once we have them on board, how can we give them a great experience that they want to stay? And then tell their friends and families about it, because we are the employer of choice, right? And so it's simple, but it's a mindset that leadership needs to have in order to start building a culture that is obsessed about the service and experience. Anytime I go to a place and the service is terrible, I don't blame the employee. I actually feel sorry for them, because they have no clue what they are doing. In fact, they are doing their best because their leaders never give them a chance to succeed. They just hired them and said, take care of the customer, not defining clearly what that looks like.
When I think about the work that you're doing, I see like two paths. One, I could see where if you were starting a brand new business, I would want to work with you immediately to make sure that I have those processes in place, right?
Yeah.
But for a business owner who's already established, what does it look like when they've built a completely different culture than one based on the success of the customer? Maybe they need to hire new teammates. What does that look like when they reach out to you and say, Francis, please help me get my business in order?
Yeah. First, and I tell all the CEOs, the presidents, this: we can do it, but it's going to be hard work. But you have to be willing to stick it out, because we don't want to take on projects or partnerships partnerships with companies who are just focused on the outcome, that they don't want to do the work it takes. So they are not willing to look at the employee experience. They are not willing to look at their leadership style and communication style, and look at how they can make it better, because all those pieces align. And so it is possible, but the leader have to accept that it's going to be some hard work. And if they, the CEO, the president, the owner, is not willing to be part of this transformation, we don't do it. We don't do it because, one, we don't want you to destroy what you already have. Because if we start this, and like I said, this is a program, this is a journey. It's not a flavor of the month. It's a culture change. Okay. So if we start this and 3 months down the line, you're like, well, this is too hard, I'm stopping. What did we just do? We just killed the morale of your team. You just lost trust and ultimately loyalty with your team. They are not going to trust you ever again. They didn't even trust us when we started, because they are thinking, well, that's another thing Casey wants us to do. Just give it 6 months. It's going to go away anyway, because that's what you've been doing. So you've built this culture where people think, oh yeah, it's another thing, let's just give it 6 months, right? But this is supposed to help you build something that is perpetual. You just kind of keep updating it, right? And so it starts with a mindset that you are willing to stick it out and do the work is required to actually get you there. I mean, anything can be changed, and that's why we look at the experience holistically, not just looking at it from the external viewpoint of what the end user gets or is delivered with, but actually the whole package of the experience. Because if you have people leaving, people are not happy, your culture is bad, it's probably because you have poor communication internally, or you have a bad employee experience. Employees don't feel like you care about them. Employees don't feel appreciated. Employees don't feel like they work for a company that truly cares about them.
So, Francis, we've talked a lot about the customer experience. We've talked about what I would call, like Fortune 500 brands. But let's talk about Francis brands, Flair brands that you've given Flair to. What is your favorite customer journey that you've been on so far?
That's a tough one. That's really tough. That is really, really tough. Oh, I think to go back to my previous employer, that would be easy. So to be fair, I would say is a higher education client we are working with. No, not going to mention who, but that in itself is innovative. higher education does not look at students, guardians, and parents as customers. They really do. They look at them as money. How many students can we get on board? How many students can we really get to come to school with us? Because the more students you get, the more money you make eventually. That's how it's always been. And I think for a higher education to consider the fact that we need to look at our people, the people we serve internally as our employees, and externally for our students, for their parents and the guardians, that's innovative in itself. And I would say that the the best client in the sense that they get it and they understand it's not easy. They know it's a journey, but they are committed to it. They are committed to it. And to be thinking about people outside their individuals that are on campus that they get to interact with every day, that's that's next level in terms of to be thinking about a student, parent, grandparent, guardian, whatever they are as a client. Because most of the times is a parent and guardians, grandparents paying for the education, right? And so if they are calling your admissions team and your admissions team is kind of all over, don't know what they are doing, or they are calling to kind of set up for classes and it's like you're making it difficult, they may want to look for an alternative. And what the student prefers most likely what is going to go. And so it's really all about the experience for them. And that has been an interesting project, I would say. One for us to also learn from it and also get to see how we can help them improve the experience overall. But that is extremely innovative to really have a higher education look at experience that I don't think, I mean, it's not happening in most of the colleges around the nation.
Changing gears, you said what I like about this is that we're learning from it.
Hmm.
So I think that maybe a business owner who comes to a consulting company might say, consultants have all the answers. But I think what we've had in this whole conversation is you're always learning and growing your business too.
All consulting firms are paid to learn. Essentially, that's what we do. We are great at coming up with solutions, but in order to provide solutions, you first have to learn. To go in there, because at the end of the day, we are not trying to make anyone Disney 2.0 or Chick-fil-A 2.0. That's not what it's about. This is completely customized to you, based on your needs, where you are, where you find yourself. And like we say, we bring the toolkit. We help you define the experience you want to deliver. But we don't know who you are. We don't know what your brand promise is. But once we partner together, then we begin to learn about each other, right? So we can better guide you and say, okay, if this is what you're trying to do, then this is perhaps the good approach to go about it. And so we also learn on the job, and it's about learning. You have to always be a student. You have to always be a student, and that's one of our core principles. You have to keep learning, because we don't want to be given solutions to things that have worked in one industry, thinking that it will work in the other industry. They are completely different industries. However, the formula remains the same, and so how can we model the formula to fit your needs? And it's all customization.
For any of our businesses that are listening today, is there anything we haven't covered in the podcast that you think they should know about your business? Where can they connect with you?
Well, you can connect with me on social media at Francis Flair anywhere, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, LinkedIn, or on Francis Flair. You can find more information at our website at flairconsultinggroup.com. And I don't know, for a give, I have a free 6-step checklist that you can also find on the website, but I'm more than happy to give that to you. Maybe you can add it to your show notes.
We'll link it in the description. Yeah.
Yeah, for people to download. But yeah, you can find me everywhere on social media as Francis Flair.
And maybe at a BBB event, you attended our happy hour last week.
Yes.
I'm not gonna promise you're gonna be at other events, but you might catch Francis at some of those other events. Francis, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today to talk about the customer experience and so much more than that. Talking about serving Oklahoma business owners. I think the heart behind what you do is amazing. And you know what I really love is when you came on and said, I want to provide context for why I started this business, because there's this whole backstory for why I love what I do.
Yeah.
And that's my favorite part about working here at BBB, is that I get to have conversations like this and I get to learn so much about people. I'm not in consulting, though. I feel like I get to learn every day when I do a podcast like this, because I get such a wide variety of people on the show with way different skill sets than I have. So I've so enjoyed our chat today.
Oh, thank you. It's been a pleasure.
So for our podcast listeners, thank you for listening today. You can connect with Francis at Francis Flair. And of course, we'll be sharing this on all of our social media channels at BBB Central, okay? Be sure to give this episode a like, share it on YouTube and anywhere else you listen to your podcasts. And we will see you in the next episode. Bye.